my ninjas? Strydent here, and I am back with a Christmas review. This was a toy I got as a present from my homeboy. He's Scottish Prime on DeviantArt and Clarion Prime here. He's also the writer of War of the Gods. We go back a long way, and we've been talking about, the S.I.C figures and whether or not I should get it. And after all this talk and deciding and blah blah blah, he got me this for Christmas, and I'm glad to get it. This is S.I.C volume 55, Strong, Kamen Rider Stronger and Tackle. Now, the S.I.C series is a bunch of reimaginings of classic and modern Kamen Rider characters. But these are the original S.I.C figures. I want to say the 8-inch scale figures. They completely dwarf the Kiwami Tamashi S.I.C figures that are pretty much the standard today. Tons of detail, tons of crazy paint application, awesome sculpting, and little gimmicks like some of the ones you see here. So all in all, these are some awesome, did I say awesome? Figures, and I'm going to go into the ups and downs of these figures. Overall, I really like them. There are small things, but I'll go into those later. Normally, the reviewers and the reviews I've seen before this, they kind of focus a lot on one of the two, and I'm going to switch things up because there is a way to make them equal so that you can review them the right way. So without further ado, here are Kamen Rider Stronger and Tackle. Okay, so right off the bat, the weaker one of the two, as I think almost every review has said, is Stronger, which kind of sounds funny. Kamen Rider Stronger is the weaker figure of the two, but he's weaker only because he's lacking articulation in his head and neck. He really can't turn his neck, he can't look up or down unless you do a simple mod, which I did on mine. So he can turn his head and he can turn, his neck can move a little bit more. There are two pegs to the right and left of the back portion of his neck, and if you use something to pry his neck up, you can reveal those two little pegs, and then you need to chop them off pretty much. Use an X-Acto knife or a small pocket knife or something, and then you give him back his mobility in his neck. Now if you achieve that, then the figure is equally as cool as Tackle. Much props to Kenjitron for revealing that modification on his blog. I'll have a link to that. He did mention that he wasn't the first person to come up with this, but he was the first person that came up when I did my Google search. So props to you. Props to the other person who put it up too. You know who you are. I'm glad he did that. Now on with the rest of the review. Okay, there's no denying that this team is just, they're pretty hardcore looking, especially together. A lot of reviewers focus on individual, merits for each of the figures, and they focus a lot on Tackle because Tackle is kind of an anomaly as far as Kamen Riders go. But Stronger, you have to admit, when you see what the original design looked like and then you see what this version looks like, they really did an awesome job. Together, they're a quality looking team. They look official. They got the whole Batman and Robin vibe, and I don't know, I just dig that whole look. And there's a retro feel to them, but separately, there's so many little details that make them all, interesting figures to have in your collection by themselves. Anatomically speaking, these guys look like movie versions of the original versions of the original TV versions of these characters. I really can't complain about anything, that these figures have to offer. Maybe durability, but I really don't have too much to complain. But unlike the previous reviews, I'm gonna start off with Stronger, because after the mod, he's no longer the weaker one of the two figures. He's pretty much equal to Tackle. But anyway, here's what he comes with. This added face plate, extra shoulder pads, chest pads, and several extra hands for all kinds of things, including his like signature pose. It's kind of cool when you get a figure. I love getting figures with multiple hands. To me, it just makes sense, Why try to make them have all these gimmicks like the Marvel Legends with posable fingers and shit? It always takes away from the experience of actually using that figure and posing him with something in his hands, because a lot of times articulated fingers don't allow for holding things. But you can see from this kind of picture the little details they've put into this figure, and the little nuances and small bits of articulation help make this thing stand out, especially in photographs. He's to scale with many of the Marvel Legends and Street Fighter and DC Universe Classics, and actually even a Marvel Select. He seems to be pretty tall, though. I don't know if... I know Kamen Riders usually get bigger when they transform, but, whatever. It all depends on what you want to do. His gimmick is a light-up gimmick. So, the chest piece actually is transparent kind of plastic, and underneath that chest piece, which you can see when you remove it to switch it out, is a light up S. And on his back there's a button you press, and his face and his chest light up, which is kind of awesome. And if you flick it up just a little bit, it actually stays on. So like when I was taking these photographs, it was just on, like all the way on, which is pretty awesome. Like I said, you do your little your tweak or toggle or whatever you want to call it, your little mod, and his neck can move the right way. You can't move it 360 degrees, but as I've said a billion times, whose neck spins 300, whose head can spin around 360 degrees besides freaking, possessed people from the freaking Exorcist or something? So we're not doing any of that stuff. We're keeping it extremely simple. It's just going to be, a more human level of articulation. You can turn to the left, turn to the right. He can even nod upward or look upward like you see in this picture. And that's him with the modified armor and different, face plate. The ascot on the back is, or scarf for those of you who don't know what I'm talking about. It's got its own little peg and a ball socket type joint, so you can move it around to make it do what you need it to do. From the footage I remember seeing of this character, which wasn't very much because I didn't really like what I saw before, I just was like, man, this is a really old Kamen Rider. He primarily did just typical karate, and it made him cool to me to some degree. I just wasn't like won over by his design, and that's usually what attracts me to a Kamen Rider when I'm looking at the shows. You can pretty much pose him in all those poses. Every pose I saw him assume in the TV series, I was able to actually mimic with my toy, which in my eyes makes for a good figure. Forget the fact that you have to mod his neck to get him to turn his head the way you would want him to. It still makes for a good figure. Plenty of playability for good old Stronger. Now, his articulation is pretty close to, I want to say, Marvel Legends, and they've hidden a lot of the joints well, especially the shoulders, because there's like a shoulder piece that moves around that allows for all these cool poses without revealing the joint, which is freaking awesome. Props to Bandai. And now we move on to Tackle. Tackle, pretty much anything Stronger can do, articulation wise, she can do the same thing, and then some. One thing I have to say I give them props for, and it stands out, is the articulation on the hands, the replaceable hands. Like a chop, you only have articulation going up and down, kind of like the second hand, I think it's the right hand on the newer G.I. Joe figure, so that it can hold a gun properly. For the punch hands, it can only go up and down. It can't go, you know, side to side, like, or I guess the chop hand goes side to side, and depending on where you're facing it, it's up and down. Where the fist can only bend towards the arm. So you can see the joint, what I'm talking about, on her chopping hand. So it looks awesome when you have her assuming kind of kung fu-ish poses, you know. Unfortunately, though, the pegs that hold these things in are kind of brittle, and one of mine broke during the, you know, me taking pictures and stuff, but I was able to glue it back together, and, you know, all's well with the world. But she comes with a ton of, you know, a bunch of extra hands. The ascot, which is removable, and that faceplate, the extra faceplate. You can see that they did a miraculously miraculous. They did an amazing job with her face. I mean, you can remove that faceplate there. I didn't do it for this review, but I probably will eventually take some more pictures and, you know, have that in there. But you can replace that with the faceplate I showed you. If you look in those clear spots, you can kind of see it. There are fans and gears and things. So you're seeing that, like, there's a lot going on when they make this transformation. It's not just a nice costume. Their inner workings kind of become a little bit more technologically advanced. And here is Tackle with her faceplate to make her look more like a Kamen Rider, more than just like a generic sidekick type character, you know, because that's pretty much what she was. But she kind of, you know, garnered a lot of attention, being that she was the only, at the time, the only female like sidekick, or the female quote-unquote rider to I want to say at this point she was the only one to have a figure, and to have an S.I.C. at that. Once again, you see her in comparison to you know, a Street Fighter figure. She's not too tall, so you can see she's just a tiny bit shorter than Remy, and I dig that. So she's not tiny like Sakura, she's not huge like Sagat. She's somewhere in the middle, which is nice, you know. As I said earlier, she dwarfs, both of them dwarf the S.H. Figuarts. They kind of feel like they're the height that, you know, the S.H. figure. Oh, I was expecting the S.H. Figuarts to be. You can see my thighs. He fell off of my shelf and, yeah, busted off one of his little, you know, fins or whatever. But yeah, I like the size difference to some degree. It just sucks when you have them all together and these S.I.Cs are straight dwarfing everything else around them, you know? It's kind of like, I wish that there was a range of scale with the S.H. Figuarts as opposed to, you know, the S.I.C. Overall, though, you can see that the details, the articulation, everything still is true to form. It almost feels like the original S.I.Cs shared articulation with the S.H. Figuarts, just as the Figuarts are a little bit more accurate to the TV shows. But overall, like I said before, Tackle, she's an awesome figure. Her posability, her paint, the overall redesign is just amazing considering what she originally looked like. Yes, folks, that is actually what they looked like. Mainly her. That's not a bad cosplay. That was the actual design from the freaking TV show. So we've come a long way, baby, for real. It's awesome that they were able to go back and take this classic character and update her look and make her look that much more formidable, so we're not sitting here embarrassed at the fact that we've got a figure of this character. Because honestly, if I had a toy that looked like that picture, I'd kind of be embarrassed. So I'm happy that they went in this direction and they erased the T's off her breasts and kind of made them more of a design and less of a generic T. But this is a definite good buy. I think these cost about $40, so maybe less. So if you see these, pick these up. They're definitely worth the money, and they definitely look so good on your shelf. And if you feel like playing with them, they can withstand it. So definitely do yourself a favor. And if you dig tokusatsu and you dig the old Kamen Riders and you want a more grown-up looking, bunch of characters to have on your shelf, you need these guys. Alright? So that's it for me. You've all been great. I will talk to you later. Peace outside.